I think aspen previously was quite an under-recognised species. It was forgotten about, and it's a key part of the Caledonian forest, which once was in the Scottish landscapes.
It's definitely rarer than it should be, and that's because of land management practices that go back millennia.
Aspens are a really important species. You have a whole assemblage of species exclusively associated with aspen.
It's a very important tree to our woodlands here. It is a pioneer species, and it is one of the first to colonise bare grounds and makes way for the next generation of trees that require a more nutritious soil.
I think it's fair to say that in recent centuries aspen's fallen on hard times in Scotland. What we found here is it's the thing that will be eaten first, given half a chance by any deer or sheep that happen to be in the area. That's primarily just because of the ecology of the species. It grows very fast, it puts a lot of nutrients into its leaves, which means that in normal circumstances it can grow very well and very quickly. The problem comes when you have several centuries of high herbivore densities. At that point aspen can really begin to suffer, basically because it's just so tasty.
Aside from herbivore browsing, one of the other challenges for aspen is reproduction. It's a dioecious tree, so there are male and female trees, and so naturally there should be sexual reproduction, so there should be flowering and seed setting from that. In Scotland, we don't often see widespread flowering. It can happen every 30 years. So when that doesn't take place, aspen can vegetatively reproduce. It spreads from its root system, so it suckers from the roots, and you see these new kind of saplings coming up from the roots, which sounds great, but the challenge with that is that all of those suckers will be a genetic clone of the parent tree, and so we don't then see that genetic, variation, resilience that we would hope for.
We've quickly built up this picture of just how important aspen is. You have a whole assemblage of species that only live on aspen, exclusively associated with aspen. The aspen bristle moss, the aspen hoverfly, all these kind of things.
It has a lot of ecological relationships with different species. For example, beavers really like aspen, but also there's a lot of mosses and lichens that depend on aspen.
Beavers and aspen are like salt and pepper, fish and chips. They've evolved together. They actually need one another. It's not just good for all its ecological benefits. We know foresters love aspen because it's a blooming useful tree. It can be highly productive. It's a highly tolerant species. It will grow pretty much anywhere.
Aerial surveys were conducted across the Spey side and the Dee side to monitor aspen, and then that was pinpointed on a map, and then we use this map to go then on the ground to actually prove that aspen is present, and then we go even further in detail and see what ecological condition those aspen stands are in. There's a really good strongholds of aspen woodlands within those Spey side and Dee sides, but unfortunately they're really small isolated populations.
Although aspen does have maybe a bit of a stronghold in the Cairngorms, there are larger stands here, there are stands that have been protected. Actually, aspen should be present all across Scotland, so including, the mainland, the islands. It's a missing tree in our landscape, and I think when something is missing, it's easily forgotten.
It's a rare species in Renfrewshire. When we started, there was only 5 original wild aspen trees left in the whole of the county.
We need a whole community focus of stakeholders, the communities that have aspen even within their gardens as well, to just connect aspen back up to allow those priority species to expand.
It's so important that we have a good understanding of where aspen still is clinging on. So if you've got it on your own land, a great opportunity now that you recognise the value of this resource to think, what can you do about it?
We've created a clone collection to preserve the different genes of each of these surviving trees that are typically isolated in the wild. We're preserving the genome, if you like, of the population, but it's a means then to propagate material off of these stock trees that we grow to create new trees that we can then plant out, mixing up these different clones together in the hope that eventually they'll cross-pollinate, flower, produce seed and reproduce.
Aspen only flowers very irregularly, and of course without flowering we don't get any seed. In order to collect seeds, we've had to create a seed stand here on the nursery. Aspen flowers after a period of stress. So we try and mimic that here on the nursery by putting these trees under a wee bit of stress to encourage flowering the following year. And our main method of doing that is through bark work, which you can see here on the main stem of this tree. When the flower buds develop, we can then collect the pollen from the males and paint it onto the female catkins. Once the female catkins have been pollinated and the pods have started to split, we can collect the catkins, just wee seeds like this. And once we're at this stage, we can sow them onto compost. So after we've sown aspen, it can germinate within 24 to 48 hours. And from 1 gram of seed, we can get up to 3,000 aspen seedlings.
You can see there's an awful lot of naturally regenerating pine-dominated woodland here. I think there's an expectation that pine will be, a major constituent of Caledonian pinewood, but actually from a biodiversity perspective, it's really good to have a mix of species, particularly birch, willows, rowans. But aspens have a really major part to play in this.
In the future, we would like to see aspen everywhere. We would like to bring back this priority species, which is so isolated, and really connect that back up and make it bigger and better and more resilient and better for the future.
Painting Scotland Yellow is a great initiative to actually showcase how important the tree is, how beautiful it is, how beautiful in the landscape, and how valuable it is.
Aspen really boosts the kind of biodiversity around it. Often we think about maybe oak trees as having so many dependent species and hosting a wide variety of life. I would like to think of aspen in Scotland in a very similar way and just think about what we're missing when we don't have that within our landscapes.